Thank you, Decode, for economic and financial consulting, for the usual support to Business Forward, and putting together 1 year full of events and challenges in such a short, informative, and comprehensive video. The video we just saw lays the foundation for our first panel today. Our discussion panel today will seek to see the correlation between the intricate interplay of these challenges and how businesses are navigating them so they can keep moving forward. A notion Business Forward is always supporting. For this reason, our first panel hosts a distinguished group of business leaders to provide us with insights on potential breakthroughs for resilient and thriving businesses. The panel discussion will be moderated by Dr. Wael Abdullah. Please come join us on the stage. Dr. Wael is Assistant Professor of Finance at AEC School of Business. He's a non-executive board member and head of governance and audit committee at Beltone Financial Holding, and he serves as a member of the supervisory committee of a number of mutual funds and investment banking. Also, our esteemed panel includes Hanan Abdelmegid. Please join us on stage. Hanan is a tech industry pioneer with over 25 years of experience. She leads Camelizer, a Cairo-based venture focused on innovation in the startup sector. Formerly CEO of OTV Ventures and influential at Link.net, she's a serial entrepreneur and a mentor for incubators and active in academic and business alliances. Also with us today, Minouche Abdelmegid, a fellow alumni of the school and founding partner and CEO of Mizan Investments. Please join us on stage. Minouche boasts over 24 years of expertise in investment management and banking. As the former managing director of Union Capital Partners, she launched Egypt's first SME-focused private equity fund. Minouche is a certified corporate director, independent board member of HC Securities, and actively contributes to the Cairo Angels Syndicate Fund. She's recognized on Forbes' Most Powerful Women in Africa since 2011, and a World Economic Forum Young Global Leader committed to governance, sustainability, and value creation in the financial sector. Last but not least, Mr. Omar Sheneti. Please welcome Mr. Omar on stage. Mr. Omar is the managing partner at Zila Capital, and he's a seasoned financial expert with a background in investment banking. He holds a global executive MBA and a Master of Laws in International Financial and Commercial Law, and he's a co-founder of the House of Wisdom Foundation, actively providing analysis on economic issues in the Middle East in a number of publications. He serves as an adjunct faculty at the American University in Cairo and the University of London at AAST in Cairo. We'll be having a 15 minutes Q&A session at the end of this panel and the following panels as well. So you can submit your questions by scanning the QR code on the screen, or through a show of hands to our ushers who will be standing on the sides of the hall. They can help you also scan the QR code on a piece of paper or provide you with a piece of paper and a pen if you prefer to write the question if you're not a QR fan like me. Thank you.
Thank you, Wafa. Welcome, Hanan, Minouche, and Omar. The first question that I think that all the people wants to know about are what would you rank the top three challenges you have faced during 2023, including the FX availability of the foreign currency in general, wage inflation. So we can start with Hanan.
So thank you. Thank you. I'm happy to be on a panel named Is There a Breakthrough? Yeah, it's a perfect timing after the breakthrough in the weekend. Yeah, we actually, the past 2 years were very tough years as an angel investor focused on the seed stage technology startups. The biggest challenge was the brain drain. the brain drain is a reality that we had to survive, whether in inception or in scaling the startups. The good news is that they keep the business offices in Egypt, but definitely the brain drain to a booming ecosystem like Saudi or the safe haven like UAE is a reality. The FX crunch is also a huge challenge as far as technology startups is concerned, because all of the infrastructures and everything is in dollars, and it is a big challenge. So hybrid was a true answer for their presence. The third challenge, actually, it's a very interesting challenge, which is the salary, wages, and the denomination in dollars. If you fundraise in dollars and you're operating in Egypt, you denominate the salaries in dollars, and it's a very interesting two-folded conversation. So these are the challenges.
Okay, thank you, Hanan. Okay, then, Munish, what about the high interest rates, the hicks that's in the interest rates? Do you find it as a challenge in your business?
So first of all, coming back to AUC and walking into the Ewart Hall brought a lot of great memories, and it's always great to be back to AUC, whether this campus or the new campus in New Cairo. So I watched the video, and the impact of several of the events that have taken place during particularly the last quarter of 2023. But I want to step back, just as Hanan mentioned. I think that the impact was much greater than expected because of a lot of issues that the economy in general and businesses in Egypt have been facing for the past couple of years. And if I'd name the three challenges, I want to start first with 2 C's: consistency and certainty. So I think that overall, we have not seen consistency in policy. And policy in particular has a huge impact on business, much more than we can ever imagine. We've seen a lot of also lack of consistency in messages. So we would see statements coming out in the press: the government is privatizing within this sector, and then a couple of days after that, we would see another message where the government is entering into a joint venture in that exact same sector. So this is one thing. The second thing, when it comes to consistency and also it affects certainty, is there has been constant change in certain parameters that has a very deep impact on business models, on businesses and budgets. For instance, coming today, I've tracked the number of times where the tax rate for income has changed since 2018, 5 times. And this is the income taxes. So companies actually need to understand and know the income tax for the salaries that they pay their employees. And if it has changed 5 times since 2018, what's the impact of that on budgeting each year? And I think this morning, the Ministry of Finance has announced that it's changing the income tax law. So this is going to be in 2024. This is going to be the 6th time. This is also extremely challenging for businesses to operate, for startups to be working, or even trying to attract foreign investors to come into Egypt, because they need to factor all of that into their business plans. The second challenge, I think, is linked to the I's. So inflation and interest rates. Inflation has had a deep impact on everyone, on the layman, on businesses, on large corporates, etc. It has become extremely challenging for a lot of smaller and medium-sized companies to operate at this very high inflation environment. I know a couple of SMEs that are either slowing down, putting their businesses on hold, or even trying to move out of the country because we've always used our lower and cost-effective environment as a source of attraction to attract foreign direct investment into Egypt. And now we're starting to lose that competitive advantage. Interest rate is also another challenge because it increases the cost of borrowing. It has an impact on companies to borrow and be able to expand. Finally, of course, the huge fluctuation in the FX and the exchange rate has made it very challenging for companies to be able to account for their costs, to be able to even price to sell in the market. And over the course of the past 2 months in particular, we've seen huge fluctuation, maybe on a daily basis, which I'm hoping we will start to stabilize a little bit so that companies will be able to navigate it, inshallah, in 2024.
Okay, thank you very much. Omar, as an asset manager, how can you rank the 3 top challenges that you are facing in 2023?
First of all, thank you so much for having me here. As you said, AUC is this E-word tool specifically is very emotional, and for an alumnus of the university, this is very, very emotional. And AUC is home, and School of Business is my comfort zone inside that home. And definitely, E-word tool is the most emotional part, being an alumnus from the old campus. Glad to be here, even if we're going to be talking about challenges, but at least we have some good news over the weekend. So there's a little bit glimpse of hope. So hopefully we could reflect on that as well. We in Zella Capital, we're a regional investment bank. We operate across investment banking and asset management across the region. And the last period has been quite challenging. If I would put the 3 challenges, the 3 key challenges, I think FX definitely comes as number 1, but not in the sense that Hanan and Minouche has said. For example, in investment banking, there's so many deals that got stuck and not executed because the buyer and seller do not agree on the exchange rate. So you have deals that have been initialed, but they are on hold for 9 months or 1 year now, and they're waiting for any rate, 60, 50, 40, 70, whatever rate, just a rate that people could transact on. So I think that's a big challenge. We could also see FX as a major challenge. We have offices in Saudi, offices in Abu Dhabi, in Dubai, here in Egypt, and then in Kenya. It's very funny when you sit in the XCOM in the last quarter and you find that the rent in your Abu Dhabi office is much more than the salaries of a whole practice. While 2 years ago, this rent used to be like 5–10%. It was an insignificant number. So the financials of the firm has completely been, I would say, erupted because of exchange rates. We have huge cost in terms of dollars. Yes, definitely, anywhere between 50 to 80% of our revenues come in dollars, which is a blessing, but also a sizable percentage of our revenues come in dollar. We also have the issue that you have teams across the region. So you used to have a certain parity of paying people. So there are people who are based in Saudi, people who are based in Dubai, people who are based in Cairo. And definitely they don't get the same salaries, but on an adjustment, on a parity adjusted basis, they're all well compensated. When the dollar completely gets disrupted in the local market, all of a sudden your very well paid investment bankers in Egypt turn out to be very poor, because what they are paid here is very close to the transportation allowance that their colleagues are getting paid in Saudi. And you don't know what to tell them. I mean, how could you change that? But they're very well. They live in very nice houses, they have very nice cars, but they don't feel as good as before. So that's a very big challenge for us, and we have seen it. The second challenge, I think, is inflation rate. It has been very critical for us because you would see it on costs across the business lines. Egypt for us has always been the back office. So though big part of our revenues comes from the region, still the majority of employees are based in Egypt. And still the majority of the operation, analysis, documentation, whatever is being done out of Egypt. But all of a sudden, the 1,000 pounds is not 1,000 pounds anymore. I mean, you have to adjust for that. And how you deal with it, it disrupts your calculations, even if majority of your revenues are coming in dollar. The third, which is affecting us locally and regionally, is I would say, the geopolitical situation. And this is, I wouldn't say the elephant in the room, this is the elephant in the region. It's in every conference call. We think that the geopolitical situation is there in Egypt, but even when we talk to clients in Saudi, clients in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Qatar, wherever, this is something big. And it's not only with Gaza war, it's just before that. So previously, to give you a little bit of an example, the model that we have been operating with, and most of the services firms over the last 20 years, is have the front office in Dubai, have the back office in Cairo, and have the region spread all over have the team spread all over the region. This model is obsolete. It cannot work anymore because simply Saudis want you to be established in Saudi and they want the team to be in Saudi. Abu Dhabi people are convinced that you need to have the people in Abu Dhabi and they have to be located in Abu Dhabi. Dubai still wants to have you according to the regulator, and people still, most of the team still have their families in Cairo. So you have lots of issues, and it's not as simple as before, where you say, okay, I'm a Dubai-based company, I'm delivering the service or the project in Saudi. People do not accept this anymore, and this is causing us lots of issues. In the last period, the sensitivity has significantly increased, and you don't know what's coming next. So, I mean, for example, we have very good relationships with supposedly all the Gulf countries, but when you get to do transactions, despite the nice words in diplomacy, official diplomacy, when you get to do transactions, things do not go that way. And this is affecting us big time on investment banking. It's affecting us big time on asset management, and we try to work around it. So we try to manage Saudi funds using our Saudi-based ventures, while you manage other funds using Abu Dhabi-based ventures, while you manage Egyptian money using Egyptian licenses, and so on and so forth. And this was not the case a few years ago.
Thank you, Omar. From what you have said, we can return back to Hanan and ask her about what are certain actions you can execute in order to deal with these challenges.
So I'll share what I did to kind of navigate the previous years. As an angel investment studio, I invest and host these startups. I fell in love with the hosting part, and I saw a gap in spaces that are tuned for the entrepreneurial needs. Agile spaces, you can scale it up, scale it down based on all the agility that exists in our economy. So I tested the concept with the Consolea downtown, the co-working space. And I've expanded the concept with the brand of Camelizer Spaces in New Cairo. So it's a pivot around serving as a platform for young and startup companies. So that's something that is one of the pivot that I did. And the second thing is I'm growing more and more conscious and believer that the SMEs are underserved, and the SME segments are always tagged as not fast growing. In our markets, they are fast growing if you're addressing a need. And I'm pivoting my investment interest to being focused on the fast growth SMEs that can be affected with the digital transformation and with the AI, and very focused onto taking this to the improving. It all starts with the mindset, and I think the entrepreneurial mindset needs to better serve the SME in the sector. So these are kind of my two answers onto as pivots. As startups, definitely merging the startup practice with there are a lot of mergers and consolidations that are happening. It started a year and a half ago. Maksab, one of the biggest players, consolidated with the Kenyan startup. You have Orcas, a leading edtech, consolidating with a Kuwait startup. So this trend will continue, and it's very beneficial, by the way. I see it as an extremely beneficial trend that started and hopefully will continue. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Yes, Minouche, can you list for us 3 actions that you can deal with our challenges?
So I think we kept hearing the term agility a lot during the pandemic. I think that Egypt needs to keep repeating that word extensively, and it's important for businesses to be agile because of the number of challenges that multiple challenges actually that businesses have been facing. I think the second point is extremely important, diversifying the sources of revenue, just as Omar was mentioning. And this is something that as a private equity investor, we always encourage businesses to do it. Find different sources of revenue, preferably in foreign currency in a way or another, that will hedge these companies against potential fluctuations in the exchange rate. And then the third point, touching on what Hanan said, which is the mergers and the acquisitions. I think that because of these challenges and because of the high cost environment, it's extremely important for companies, SMEs, startups, even some of the medium size and the mid-cap companies to start considering mergers, affiliations, to be able to achieve economies of scale, reduce the cost, and also address issues concerned with a brain drain. Because if larger corporations will probably face lower cycles of brain drain compared to SMEs and startups. I think that finally, one of the things that I believe that companies can also start considering, which is undermined in Egypt, is factoring in ESG. We always believe that it's important to implement ESG during higher business cycles, but there's a lot of support that can come from DFIs and developmental financial institutions, companies going through ESG and digital transformation, and even enhancing the governance, etc.
Thank you very much, Omar, because we have a lot of questions after that. So please.
Sure. So in terms of what we've done as a firm, I think there are like the three critical things is, as Minouche said, diversifying revenue sources. For us to be able to hedge against the FX, we had to increase revenues coming in dollars as much as possible for the overall firm and by practice. And we've achieved that. Some of the practices have 95% of revenues coming in dollars, which is bad news when the exchange rate in the parallel market decreased by 20 pounds or 15 pounds. But I mean, that's not a very big problem. It's okay in overall. So that was one thing, and we've done this through aggressive regional expansion. The second thing that we have tried to do is trying to think about business lines in different countries as separate financials and separate entities. So we judge Egypt based on Egypt situation. We judge Saudi based on Saudi situation. We judge Abu Dhabi based on Abu Dhabi situation, because with the huge currency fluctuations, sometimes you find out that a very old and good business turns out to be obsolete, doesn't make sense. Numbers in dollars are ridiculous. While this business could grow. So Egypt might not be good in 2023, but 2, 3, 4 years down the road, it will actually be okay again. I mean, as we always say, Egypt, this is our philosophy. Egypt is too big to fail, but too big to save as well. So, I mean, you have to deal with it. It's going to always be there. You want to have a good position, but you cannot judge it with the same Saudi matrices. So, I mean, we differentiate that. The third part is coming up with new products. And I thank Dr. Sharif for talking about AI, because we started to have in asset management AI-related products. So a momentum product that's based on AI techniques and in the US market to offer investors, not only local, but also regional exposure to international markets with things and tools that are that can cope with international markets. And we have found out that this has been very good. So we get away from the regional issues and the regional geopolitics, but also give investors exposure to much wider offerings and services. Here in the market, you have like 50 to 100 good stocks to invest in. In Saudi, they are 200 to 300. In the US, they are 3, 4, 5,000. If you add commodities and derivatives, you have to add 2, 3 zeros. So, I mean, you're giving investors
Diversification
a much bigger diversification. So this is what we have done. And I think it worked quite well for us.
Thank you very much. Let us now have some questions from the audience. The first question, of course, what is the impact of Ras Al Hikma deal on the business in Egypt for the next decade in considering current system? What is the impact of Ras Al Hikma deal on the business in Egypt for the next decade in consider current system? For any one of you. يعني
مش منى زكي كانت
let us
اتخرجت من
cross
الجامعه
our
عندنا
fingers
قالت
that
ينفع
Omar
ما تجاوبش
will
هي
stay with
منى
us
زكي
until
قالت
the end.
كده.
Yeah.
So I mean, I learned not to, I mean, throughout my life, I learned not to be a bullshitter. So, I mean, I will be straight. I think this is the Ras Hikma project as being expressed by the Prime Minister is a political and a mega country-to-country deal before being a business deal. So I think there are three aspects to this project: a political aspect, an economic aspect, and then a business aspect. The political aspect, we don't know it yet. It has not been released. We could speculate, but we don't know. So I cannot comment on it until it's released. The economic aspect, we can comment on it, but it will be very limited in terms of scope because we don't see the full picture yet. The business aspect is quite clear. If we add the project of Ras Al Hikma plus what is being said about other projects that will probably take place by the Saudis, Qataris, plus the IMF deal, obviously we're going to have two very good honeymoon years. And for anyone who has been married for more than 10, 15, 20 years, you know that 2 years of honeymoon is great. And for people who have been in Egypt in 2022 and 2023, they know that it will be a great relief. So on the short term, it's a no-brainer. It's going to be very good for the coming 2 years. Afterwards, I would borrow what Keynes has said: in the long run, we're all dead. So I'm not sure what's going to happen in the long run. If we stay with the same economic policies, we'll probably be in the same economic situation a few years later on. If we change course, as the Prime Minister has promised in his speech, which I would hope that he would do so, and the cabinet, the central bank, and all the related parties, if we really change course, we will probably be in a different situation. But as I said, there is a political side, and it's very clear, but it's not clear the details about it. So I don't know about that. The economic side, I think on the short term, there's a relief. On the business side, there are definitely beneficiaries in the real estate sector. There are beneficiaries in the many commodity sector, in the pharma, which have huge backlog of imports. They will work. But as I said, I think to be able to build comprehensive judgment, we need good couple of weeks, not couple of months. So from here till the beginning of Ramadan, till all the deals get concluded, I think we will be in a better situation to make good judgment.
Okay, thank you, Omar. This question for you. Okay. How do you think the current challenges will impact the new technology startups and SMEs in Egypt in terms of competitiveness, growth, and risk?
I'm a big believer in the strength of the entrepreneurial system and the strength of the Egyptian entrepreneurs. And I think the beauty of any challenge, there's always a side to it that's positive. And I think one thing that's structurally changed, that a lot of technology startups, even when they start with the diversification in mind, and this is strength, okay? And I see in front of me people like Shadi from Amwell, who's a very resilient kind of entrepreneur. And I see the hard work that everybody is putting. I'm a huge believer. I think even from a market perspective, we've got a taste of the greatness of the market and the interest that regional and international investors have in our market once our economy normalized. So pre the situation, we were living like a huge dream and success. And I think a part of it is structurally we're more resilient. So I'm super optimistic on the future of technology startups in Egypt.
Thank you very much. Ms. Minouche, we have a question for you. Can you elaborate more on the change of salary tax in 2024? How did we know that it will come to change in 2024, especially it has just changed a few months ago?
I think this question should be addressed to the Minister of Finance. He is the one who keeps changing it. So I hope that part of the change in course that the Prime Minister mentioned on Friday is that we have this consistency. It's extremely important for any business to be able to calculate certain parameters. This is extremely important, and existing business and businesses wanting to come and operate into Egypt, because any business coming in will have a business plan with certain projections, 3 to 5 years, and there has to be clarity on basics. The tax rate is one of them. If an investor comes in and invests and then will find the number of changes like that in taxes, in interest rate, etc., it becomes extremely challenging to attract more foreign investors into the country, and also to maintain and keep these investors. I mean, some of these investors are already suffering from dividend repatriation for the past couple of years. That alone in itself is a challenge for them to be able to bring out their profits out of the country. So we need to reduce the challenges for them and not increase it.
Thank you very much. Omar, we have a question for you about the salary and the salary increase and the minimum wage in terms of inflation expectation, how it will affect. Yes, the impact of the recent increase in the minimum wages in terms of the inflation expectation. And what if it's a correct decision from an economic perspective or not?
So I think that the increase in the minimum wage, which was applied mainly in the public sector, not in the private sector, moving it up to £6,000 per month per employee. I think if you look at it from a social point of view, it was overdue. I mean, inflation has been hitting the country for the last couple of years very aggressively. And if you get £6,000 per month on an individual basis, you need to ask yourself, what can you get out of it? So think about it for a family of 4 or 5 people. So it's only fair to do this. If you remove the hat of the social / the economic and think about it from a pure business point of view, on the private sector, this could be a very big challenge, because some of the businesses do not have the capacity to expand on wages, especially in labor-intensive businesses. And I think this is creating lots of tension, and it will stay to increase, to have more tensions in labor-intensive businesses. I think it's whether it's the right decision or not. I think it's all about your biases. The social / the socio-democratic part in me would say we need a much higher minimum wage. The macroeconomist side on me, I would say this is not necessarily a very favorable decision. It will have implications. What we have done, which I think could be good in our firm, is let's share the upside, because we don't know what's going to happen. Yes, the inflation is hitting. It's hitting employees and it's hitting employers as well. So let's share the upside. So if we, as you say, make much more money, you're going to take bigger part of the upside. But this is not necessarily something that in the industry employees can catch for. So the minimum wage could be good for them. In terms of inflation expectation, I think in Egypt, 70-75% based on research of the current inflation we have is an imported inflation based on the FX rate. So if you control for the FX rate, we should have a better inflation rate. And this is based on research, not based on our insight. So I would say that in the coming period, the increase in the minimum wage would not necessarily have a direct effect on inflation. I think it was a way to compensate lower income people by making sure they do not get completely forgotten, more or less. But I think the inflation is not demand driven in Egypt. It's a supply driven inflation, mainly imported inflation. So if we control the exchange rate, not that I'm saying that we have to control it. I mean, if exchange rate got into reasonable bounds and boundaries, I think we will have a much better time with inflation rates.
Thank you, Omar. This is a question for the three of you, okay? What is your advice for medium-class people who own some cash reserve, let us say less than 3 million EGP? Okay, what should they do to maximize the return or at least preserve their money value? This is one of the questions from the audience. So he's a medium class people and he own less than 3 million EGP. What shall he do? Or she do, yeah.
Portfolio management, free portfolio management advice. I think we should start with Omar for that question.
الغلبان اللي فيكم يا جماعه مفيش حد غيري ولا ايه؟ هو اولا نحمد ربنا ان معاه 3 مليون جنيه يعني دي حاجه I think
أنا برضو
that's something to start with. I think having some good cash is a blessing in these tough times. I would say definitely in such time 3 million. I would always think of diversification. I'm not a very big fan of real estate in Egypt. I think it's extremely overpriced on any means and measures, and I think real estate will have very hard time in the coming years. So I'm not a very big fan of that. I would say always a mix between dollar after it rebalances a bit, gold after it rebalances a bit, and a portfolio in the stock market after it rebalances a bit. And when I say it rebalances, I would say that the coming few weeks to few months, if I have cash, I would sleep. I would thank God that I have cash, and I would leave the market to go through its adjustment period because we are all in the grinder. كلنا بنتضرب في الخلاط. So let's pass the coming 2 to 3, 4, 6 weeks, and then we wake up and see what's the market will be looking like, and then I would allocate across these 3 assets one way or the other, but not real estate.
Okay, thank you. What's your recommendation to follow on how to forecast our business budget during the next 36 months?
So 36 months, you always, I would say a plan is always, I'm going to go back to the word that we used a lot. It's agility. So you should start with a plan based on certain clear assumptions so that the assumptions, when they are reconsidered, you can really move your plan with the assumptions. So agility has its own roots that in the planning process, you have to clearly and consciously and intentionally document your assumptions and examine them every, hopefully not several times on the air, not that frequently, but it needs to be examined until the economy normalizes. It's only fair. We've been passing through very tough times, and we have to embrace ourselves that nothing goes back to normal abruptly. There are no shortcuts, so everything will need to scale back to normal. So put your assumptions, make a plan, and make sure that you examine it frequently.
Do you want to add anything?
So I would actually add that what Hanan is saying is to be very conservative. Business plans are usually tricky, especially when the person doing the business plan is the business owner. There's always forecasting huge revenues and minimal cost compared to the reality. So I would do it actually the other way around. And this is why the reality is, I think that this is why governance is extremely important, because there's an element of attachment when it comes to the business owners forecasting the budget. And it's best to have like an element of independence when forecasting the budget. But if the business owners, if it's a small business and the business owner needs to do the forecast, go against your natural instinct of increasing the revenues and controlling the costs. Do it the other way around, at least for the next 36 months.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Omar. Oh, good. Okay, in your view, Omar, how can we eliminate the Forex black market and in what timeline?
ممكن استعين بصديق طيب ولا حاجه؟
We have Dr. Sharif also, if you want to share.
He will never comment. I think he's smart enough not to comment. So I think if you I have a few comments here and I would put them in separate. I think trying to put the black market as the enemy and trying to make it the target that you need to eliminate is a very stupid objective. And I don't think that it can be the objective of the economic policy to eliminate the black market. I think the black market is a symptom, not a disease. So we need to treat it as such. Trying to always talk about the black market, those people who are not patriots, who convert their pounds into dollar, this is really, really, really very superficial. This is not economic policy. This is not fundamental economics or behavioral economics or any economics. This is too far away. I think the black market was a symptom that the economy is not doing very well, that we have imbalance in our trade balance and in our and in the banking system. Though we had reserve for $36 billion, we have $27 billion of net foreign asset exposure in the banking sector. So in reality, our reserves were too low. So this is the reality. This is the problem. The symptom was people were afraid, so they were dollarizing as much as possible. And I'm not sure if they're right or wrong. I think that was their impulse. So trying to think of as my main point, trying to kill the black market is not an objective. Trying to have the right economic policy will result in having a better parallel market. This is number one. Number two, we have always had parallel market. It's not new. And we've always budgeted in any plan that a certain official rate, and then for people who have FX needs that are not supplied by the official market or the banking system, you go to the black or to the parallel market for 10% premium or something like that. And it has always been like this, and we have always been comfortable with that. If it goes to 20%, it was okay. So I think, again, the objective, even if we are rational, is not to kill the black market, but to get it within the band of 5, 10, 15, maximum 20% premium, which could be reasonable. How could this happen? Number one, finalize these deals, which are already, these deals are in the pipeline. Number two, clear the backlog for all the people that have products in the ports, and you want to clear this backlog. Number three, remove limits from credit cards so that people can start to do that. Number four, create clear policies in the central bank for who could get FX from the banking sector and who needs to go to the parallel market to get السلع الاستفزازية, provocative, which I agree. If you want to get a Louis Vuitton bag, go get it at a higher exchange rate. That's not a big problem. I accept that. But if I want to get the raw materials for a pharma product, I need to get it through the official market. So if you do this, and if you do it for 6 months, I think the black market, the parallel market will get to its original norms with anywhere between 5 to 20% premium above the official rate. I think that would be an objective, but the objective of killing the black market, I think this is not really the right way to put it, and I wouldn't like to kill the black market at any point of time here.
Thank you, Omar. One of the questions, Bardo, to continue about this, that after the weekend news about Ras Al Hikma, do you think we still need the IMF funding support?
I think the proper question was the Ras Al Hikma project a separate deal from the IMF deal, or were they tied deals? And this is why I asked. We have Ras Al Hikma project is a political / economic / a business deal. I think there is a bigger deal, and it has so many sub deals underneath. I think the IMF is one of them, and I think the IMF deal definitely will be very helpful to make sure that we as a country change course, adopt proper orthodox economic policy that will get inflation under control, will help us manage FX rate in a proper way. So I think if I wear the hat or if I were in the shoes of the Gulf investors, I would tie my investments with the IMF deal. So I don't think they are disconnected. I think they are very much connected and earmarked, actually. So I would say it that way.
Thank you. If you want to add anything, Hanan? Okay. So I have only one last question for the three of you in 1 minute. In your opinion, what is the outlook for 2024, 2025, and what is needed to overcome the current challenges, and what will be considered you will observe for hedging against expected uncertainty for the upcoming year? Let's start with Hanan.
Yeah. I'm happy that we're having this conversation after last weekend. I think again, I'm a huge believer in the potential of our market, and I totally believe that there were a lot of deals waiting to be done. So I look forward to an exciting 2024, and as we stabilize and we manage our expectations, one thing for sure, that the structural changes that happened in our markets, in our approach, in our SME and startups, and how do they look at the need to diversify. And also there's a very positive thing that happened, the entrance of the strategic and incumbent industries into the investment scene. There are a lot of also startup consolidation that are happening with industries. So you'll see the coupling, because everybody needs to unlock the efficiency in tight situations. So this is something that we need to, if you ask me the question of if my answer for the 3 million is always, I'm always obsessed as an entrepreneur in unlocking the value and the value creation. So investing into the future and a better, will always have better outcome.
Thank you very much. Minouche?
So actually, I want to add one thing. I think that the change in sentiment, if we were probably having this conference last Sunday, I think the energy in the room and in the panel could have been very different. And this is proof of the importance of sentiment when it comes to investment. It's very, very important for the policymakers to take that into consideration, that the consistent message, signals for trust, etc., all of that are very important. And unfortunately, I think that we need to see the policymakers emphasizing more on that, because, I mean, literally nothing happened except an announcement since last Friday, but we've seen a lot of positive changes on the ground. So this is one point that is extremely important. Adding to what Hanan said, I'm a very strong believer in Egypt as a country. I'm a very strong believer in the younger population of Egypt. The talent that I see, whether fresh graduates coming out of AUC or fresh graduates that are coming from other university, this is the human capital in the country is very significant, and there's a lot that can be built on. And then the third point, which I think that Egypt has been talking about for so many decades, and we were unable to truly benefit from it, is two things. Our location on the map, proximity to certain market, and the trade agreements that we have with African countries and with Europe in particular. And adding to that, I just want to say that with Mizan on our investment banking and our financial advisory, I'm happy to announce that we have concluded a buy-side advisory to Ariston Holding Company. It has concluded an acquisition in the water heaters industry and home appliance industry in Egypt. It will be operating and expanding in Egypt, exporting to Europe. And this transaction was officially concluded within the past couple of weeks. So in spite of all of the challenges, investors are willing to come and operate in Egypt because they see the long-term potential. And I think it's up to us and the policymakers to be able to unlock that.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes, Omar.
So in terms of prospects, I would like to look at the future in terms of 3 stages in the coming very short term, and I'm talking short term, 3 to 4 months, and I would call this the adjustment period. And then I would say the honeymoon, which starts summer and stays for 1.5, maximum of 2 years, and then facing the new reality or the new normal, which starts after the 2 years. In the coming 3 to 4 months, I think the market will be going through a huge adjustment. Because we have so many deals getting in. For the last few months, lots of businesses have been pricing their inputs on dollar that was priced at 60, 70, sometimes at 80 or 90 pounds. So now with the new dynamics, we need to see repricings. Also, if you look at it, such big deals are really mega deals. I've worked a lot with sovereign wealth funds, and when sovereign wealth funds do such big deals, there are so many implications that happen afterwards. So I think in the coming 3 to 4 months, we will see the implications, and the business environment only need to adjust and readjust itself. By the end of this period, I think it will be clearer what kind of exchange rate we have, what kind of interest and inflation rate environment we will be living in. But I think it will be a honeymoon period of 18 to 24 months. I think that will be a great time for raising capital. If I have any capital needs, even 5 years from today, I would raise them in those 2 years. I would raise all my capital, lock them, and I will denominate them in Egyptian pounds, not in dollars even. عشان even if the dollar reach whatever or went down to whatever, I'm stable. So I would do that. On the long run, after the honeymoon period, I think it gets back to the point whether we're going to change course in terms of economic policies or not. If we change course, I think we would have learned from the past couple of tough years, and we will have a much bigger upside. If we didn't learn, I think we'll be in the same point again.
Thank you very much for this discussion. Thank you, Hanan. Thank you, Minouche, and thank you, Omar. Thank you very much.